Hello, everyone, and welcome to what we'll just call the bone tool exercise. This is going to be an exercise that goes over this tool in the toolbox over here called the bone tool. I don't introduce this tool right away at the beginning of the semester because it can be kind of finicky. But hopefully at this point we have a pretty keen understanding of how Animate works, how Simple Motion Tweens work, how movie clips work, and how sound works. I have a bit of sound over here that you can download from D2L that you can use in this exercise. So I'm going to go over this. This is only a video tutorial, not a step-by-step, because it's a little more sort of intuitive in terms of sort of how you get this done. So like I said, over here on the right-hand side, I have this beat.wave. This is a sort of simple dance beat, basically, that is, I believe, somewhere in the, and I can look right here, 7.6 seconds range. And we're going to basically make a sort of short little film that's about 7 seconds long of I'll sort of call it guy dancing to this beat via a movie clip. You can see sort of the sound waves, and these sound waves here do actually represent what's going on in the movie. And you can see, and you'll hear it several times, that this is sort of this repetitive beat. We're going to use the visual of this sort of EQ to animate. We can sort of see it in the timeline, and it's going to help us sort of understand when to create what is called a new pose. Okay, so I have a document that's 800 by 600, and it is has this gray background. I would hope you do the same. 800, 600 with the gray background. So first and foremost, I'm going to insert a new symbol, and I'm going to make this a movie clip. And I'm going to call this guy dancing. Okay, remember when I click OK, I head over into the library. Next, I am going to double click on this layer, and I'm just going to label this sound. I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call this guy dancing. Okay, now what we need to do is sort of set this up for what we're going to do. Up here in Animate, which is great, we see 1 second, 2 second, 3 second, 4 second, and we see sort of how long, 24 frames obviously is about 1 second, etc. I want this movie clip to sort of basically last the length of this beat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll ahead, and I'm going to make sort of a guess. Remember we said 7.6 seconds. I'm going to guess somewhere in the, let's call it frame 180, is about where this sound wave or this sound file is going to last till. So I'm going to insert a frame there, and I'm also going to insert a frame for both layers. Okay, so I have basically a blank movie clip at this point lasting about 180 frames. Now, let's take our sound wave and grab it, and we're going to drop it down onto the stage, and you'll see it populate the timeline here. Okay, remember we're inside the movie clip, we're inside guy dancing. Okay, now that sound wave we see over here is sort of replicated here, and I'm not a musician much, but I can sort of see that about right here and about right here we have probably the main beat and kind of an afterbeat. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be animating this guy dancing in relation to those sort of spots here on the sound wave. Okay, so let's start drawing our guy. I'm going to go over and I'm going to draw this simple stick figure, and I'm going to use my oval tool. I want no stroke color on him. Okay, and let's choose just whatever. We'll make him green. We're going to change this later, and let's draw a guy. Okay, so I'm going to draw the head. I'm going to go over to my brush tool, and I'm going to draw a very, very simple stick figure. Okay, and I basically want very little in this. Okay, and right here, I'm going to actually back up here, and I drew him too big. I try to stop the video for a second, and I'm going to draw our stick figure. Okay. Now, at this point, we sort of have a very simple file. Okay, I have drawn our guy, and I have drawn sort of the head, torso, the arms, and the legs. Okay, This sort of takes up the entire movie clip at this point. We really have nothing. We have a sort of guy standing there with a bit of sound next to him. So what we want to do now is go over to what is called the bone tool. The bone tool creates what is called armatures. Armatures are sort of, think of them as the bones or the sort of skeletal structure that sort of, might support, in this case, a figure. Okay, it's called the bone tool because a lot of times it's used to sort of animate figures. So I'm going to click on the bone tool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start, and this is very important where you start. I'm going to start basically at his chest, okay? And I'm going to click, hold, and I'm going to draw out to his elbow, okay? And then I'm going to draw from his elbow out to his hands. Next, I'm going to draw from the center again. We have to start at that center. Draw out to the elbow, draw out to the hands. This time I'm going to draw up to the neck, and from the neck up to the top. And you can see we're sort of basically drawing sort of what, might be a very rudimentary skeletal system, okay? And what happens here, and we'll sort of see it in a second, and again, I always start from sort of a point that I've already drawn. Now we have sort of the skeletal system drawn here. What you'll notice up here at the top is that it adds a layer called an armature. Okay, and that armature basically is another layer that sort of supports simple animation. Okay, now before we do anything, we want to hop over to our black selection tool, and I'm going to click on this first armature, and I'm going to go up to, and I'm going to click on this frame, and I'm aligning it with this sort of afterbeat. Okay, and I'm grabbing something. In this case, I'll grab his head, and you'll see this is all sort of connected now. Okay. So I'm going to have his head start to bob, okay? So I'm going to do that, and when I move it, you'll see that it creates sort of what's called a pose, okay? You'll see if I can pull that, excuse me, and it's all connected, okay? So I'm going to click up to this next beat, and I'll move his head back, okay? Maybe he just starts to bob his head as the beat begins, okay? And I'm just simply sort of making some changes. I'll move his head back, and then maybe we'll do one more where he's just bobbing his head. Okay, so what we see here is boom, boom, boom. Okay, pardon my sort of musical interlude there, but we're essentially sort of seeing the beginnings of what is going to be a movie clip of this guy dancing. Okay, I'm going to pause the video for a second and show you something real quick. Okay. I am actually in the scene now, and you don't have to do this. So if you're working along with me, don't necessarily do this. I just want to sort of show you. We have a movie clip over here. We've had his head bobbing. We have that sound in there. And if I just place the movie clip on the one layer here, we have the sort of beginnings, and this will be the first time you sort of hear the sound on this. And we go, okay. So that's the beat, and that is sort of the beginnings, and he'll sort of start animating again here. Okay. So this is what we're going for. Okay. I don't necessarily need you guys to sort of put that on the scene just yet. I'm going to go back to guy dancing, and I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to record all of this, but I'm essentially going to sort of get this guy sort of moving along with and sort of in coordination with these beats. So each time I sort of see one of these little spikes in the EQ, I'm going to sort of do what is called a pose. Okay, so I just click on the keyframe up here, and I'm going to sort of move him around. Okay. So he essentially starts to dance, okay? And we can sort of see what he's doing by pulling the playhead. And I have this nice little sound that's going to allow me to have kind of again, a visual on sort of what he's doing, okay? So I'm going to stop the video, and I am going to animate this guy. It's probably going to take me about 4 or 5 minutes. So I'll sort of come back after I've gotten all these poses done. Okay, I'm back. And if you see up at the top, you'll see these little, we can call these tween frames. We should know these from Simple Motion tweens, but they're on this armature layer. And you can see I have sort of inserted what is called a pose. And these are basically poses, and it's sort of funny that this is a guy dancing because he is essentially posing in these different stances. The beautiful thing about this is, and I'm just sort of grabbing one of these, is this is all connected. Okay, so when we move this, it sort of moves the other parts in conjunction with it. Okay, so what are we going to do with this? First and foremost, and you're probably going to be a little confused by this, I am going to delete the sound, and you'll sort of see why I'm doing that in a second. Okay, I've used the sound to sort of space these poses in ways that make sense to the music, and I have that now. I'm going to be inserting tons of this sort of guy dancing, and I don't want 10 different sort of audio tracks down there. I'm going to reinsert it on the main scene. Remember, this is all happening over in the library. You can see here I am at guy dancing. Now I'm going to pop over to scene 1. Okay, and I'm going to simply click on the first sort of keyframe, and I'm going to add my guy dancing. Okay. And let's put him, let's just put him sort of center. He'll be the main guy. Next thing I want to do is I want to reinsert the sound. So I'm going to sort of type sound, and I'm going to do the same thing as I did on the movie clip, where I'm going to go up to, say, frame 180. I'm going to insert a frame, and I'm going to go back, and I'm going to grab my sound, and this will be sort of just the one version of that sound that I basically need. At this point, what I want to do is insert I'm going to say sort of 8 to 10 layers, and I'm going to do a ton of these. And I'm going to put the sound on the bottom. And I'm going to insert all these movie clips, okay? So I'm going to go over to all these new layers, and I'm going to grab guy dancing, okay? Each time I put him down, I'm going to alter him in some sense. In this case, I'm going to sort of scale him up, okay? I'm going to go over to this layer 4. I'm going to grab guy dancing. In this case, I'm going to go over to properties, and I'm going to choose, say, tint, and let's make him sort of a different color. Make him sort of, there we go. So I'm going to insert a bunch of these things, okay? So I'm going to pull guy dancing. And every time he sort of comes down, he's going to be sort of this green color. I'm going to pause the video once more so I can sort of, in the interest of time, get all these in and sort of show you the final product. All right, let's take a look at what I've done. All this essentially should have been seen in the previous few minutes, basically 8 layers. I'll put some simple requirements for this up. Again, not a step-by-step, but a simple sort of guide to sort of what I need for this exercise. The sound is on one layer. I just put that on the bottom. I didn't label these. This is pretty straightforward. 1, 2, 3, or 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. And I have basically all these different movie clips down. I have used scaling and with the scale tool here to change the size of these. And I have also used the property windows and sort of a variety of different sort of color effects, tints, and changing the color on these to sort of create essentially 8 different sort of guys dancing. So let's take a look at the final product. Remember, we used this sound file here to line up to our dancing. We deleted it in the movie clip because I only want one version down here. So let's take a look at what we get. Okay, I even animated this guy sort of moving across the stage. Take a look. All these guys, except for this one with the clear motion tween on it, they don't do anything. They're just sort of sitting still. They're a movie clip that's playing and really not doing much else. You can 3D tween these. It has to be a movie clip, of course. You can sort of obviously change the properties on this. So hand in this bone.swift. Email me with any questions. Again, look for the quick little guide as to what I want in this exercise, but the video should suffice in terms of instruction. Any questions, concerns, email me, and as usual, always include your .fla file. Good luck.